YouTube family.
My name is Alicia English.
And I'm Philip English.
Welcome back to our channel. Today we are doing a trash to treasure camper project.
Woo!
Let's go.
Let's go.
Today, we are working on our feature that we're going to do on the door of the bathroom. And you know from watching our channel that one of my favorite things to do is use upcycled and scrap materials that we find around the shop. But working on the camper series has left me with some scraps that I really want to do and use up because I don't want to have any waste. And I had a really good idea, or at least I think it's a really good idea. We'll have to wait and see the end result because sometimes things you envision don't really work out the way you plan. But I think I have some good high hopes for this one. I think it's really going to bring a little bit of that bohemian vibe to what I'm looking to do in the camper.
Let's turn this 1986 boring old door into something spicy.
Let's do it. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of looking inside this unfinished bathroom now that the rest of the camper is really coming into shape. And I thought it would be a perfect day, since it's pouring rain today, to be able to do an accent feature on this door. And so what I'm doing is I have a whole bunch of scraps that are left from something else we did in the camper, and I'm going to do a feature on this door. I have a few struggles and problems associated with the door that I'm going to have to tackle in order to accomplish the vision that I'm looking for. So I'm going to show you that coming up when we take a look at the actual door. But I think that this is a perfect opportunity to get this shut off so we don't have to glare into that we want to leave that for a little while longer when we have some super rainy weather over the next couple of days, to just make sure that we really have no leaks. We have nothing right now. Philip's done a great job sealing the roof, and we haven't even put on the rubber roof yet. And so we just want to make sure that everything is perfect before we start tackling putting up new walls and insulation into that space. But let's get this closed off because I'm sick of looking at it.
Yes, let's do it.
It has actually been quite a while since we've done any projects in the art studio, and since it's raining on and off, we thought it was best for us to be able to do our project in here. And so I'm pretty happy that we got the door all off and everything's in here. We've had it off since we brought the camper home and we started painting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform this into a wood quilt on the front using all the scrap 1/4-inch plywood that we have left. So I need to do a couple things to make sure that my vision can look the way that I want it to. First thing is, this door has a mirror on it. And so I need to actually be able to do an insert covering this mirror. Otherwise, I won't be able to attach all of the small pieces of the 1/4-inch plywood to the actual door. And so I have a little bit of a challenge because I need to figure out my problem solving on how I'm going to make that work so that none of the pieces end up falling off while we're traveling with the camper. The other problem that I have is that I'm going to be using 1/4-inch plywood that is already a little bit of a color. And so I need to test out my favorite stain that I'm going to use for some of the pieces on the wood quilt to make sure that the color looks the way that I want it to against this mahogany 1/4-inch plywood that we have, that we used on some of the other areas in the camper. So I'm first going to test out my stain and try to do an insert to be able to cover the whole of the glass of this door to make sure that I can do this great big narrow rectangular wood quilt. And I have a little bit of a design in mind on what it's going to look like. So we're going to rip and cut some of the scraps into strips using the table saw while the rain is done, and then come back in and be able to actually cut our pieces and transform this into a 2D wallscape on the door. So I took a couple of seconds and used a little bit of my favorite stain, which is what I thought I was going to use for some of the pieces on the wood quilt on the scrap pieces of 1/4-inch plywood. This is a mahogany 1/4-inch plywood. It's like a flooring underlayment, what we got from Home Hardware. And so when I stain it, it's actually really nice, and you can really see a lot of the grain, which I really like because then it kind of looks like real wood. The problem is, when I actually took this out to see and kind of hold it up in the camper, it's way too orangey and way too vibrant compared to the floor. And I don't want to take away from the flooring at all. And so I've actually decided that I'm going to do a bunch of painting on my pieces instead of using the stain and kind of scrap that stain idea. It just doesn't match the way that I want it to. So I'm going to go with using some white, green, and even some of the orange rust color that I'm putting in the camper, and do a lot of distressing and some painting techniques to be able to get these 1/4-inch plywood boards to look the way that I want for my feature wall. And so what I need to do now is actually, I was going to cut an insert and fill over top of this mirror space. Problem is, the weight of this door, it's really not that bad, but it does have extra weight because of the mirror. So if I'm also going to add the 1/4-inch plywood, I'm going to add some unnecessary weight that I don't need to do. So we're actually going to turn this, we're going to take this seaming off, flip it over, because we can actually get the mirror out by taking off this trim in the back. We're gonna put in a new piece of wood to fill in where the mirror was, and then we can use the mirror somewhere else in the camper or use it for another project without wasting it and lowering the weight of this actual door since I'm adding on the plywood. So we're gonna take this all apart. Actually, let's take this handle off so it can lay flat, and then we'll lefty-loosey. It's like a ghost just walked in the art room. Oh, now they're shutting the door. Oh, that's awesome. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
And opened it. Wow. That was the easiest ever. I wasn't sure what kind of mechanism I was gonna find because some of the other hardware has been really hard to puzzle back together. Needs to seamlessly come out.
And all the lines have to be cohesive.
Oh. Okay, so what if we, I don't know why we didn't think of this. Why don't we just make the mirror on the inside of the door? That way, when you open the door, we still have a pretty much full-length mirror.
That's such a good idea.
Just flipping it the other way. Then we use the same parts. We're just flipping them upside down.
Great idea.
Permitting that I don't break the mirror getting out. That is going to look good along the back. It'll all get painted white. It'll hold the mirror in place just like it did. And then the front part, when we get this nailed back on, because I'm not gonna flip it and break the mirror, will be flat. We'll be able to put our wood across it.
Let's do this.
Yay! I'm just using 1 1/4 inch brad nails to be able to put this framing back on around the mirror. And that way we'll be able to start working from the front and flipping it over. If you get dents when you're using your brad nailer, you just need to turn the compression down on your air compressor, and then you don't get the little dented rectangle that you get on the end from blasting into the wood that you're using. So especially if you're using like a softer wood, like a trim like this, if you turn down the compression, you won't get those indent marks. My plan was to use 1/4 inch plywood and to actually put it into the insert. But then I ran into this problem that this is actually about 1/8 of an inch thicker. So then when I lay my wood quilt pieces down that are 1/4 inch plywood, it's going to be raised in this area. So, luckily we saved a lot of these veneer pieces that we took off of some of the areas for the cupboards that were at the top, that we have some of this board, which is actually, luckily for us, the same thickness as this inset spot that we have to do. It's just a little bit too big, but it's definitely long enough for us to be able to do this whole area. And so what I'm going to do is cut it to size, and I'm just going to round off my corners, and then I'll be able to fit it into that spot. Do a little bit of quick measuring, and I will be able to use my jigsaw and then literally make this like a puzzle piece to put in top. And then my wood quilt can go seamlessly across the top.
Man, there's gonna be so much money in that job.
We have some leftover glue from the flooring, and so I'm going to put it inside this spot and then piece in the piece that we just cut with the table saw and the scroll saw to be able to make it fit. Then we're flush and we can get working on the wood quilt. Let's get making the art now. So we have a bunch of pieces here left, very irregular shape. And so what we're going to do is cut them into squared off strips of 1 inch, basically making 1 by 2s, but we're actually doing 1 by 1/4 inches. So now that we have turned our trashy pieces of 1/4" plywood into treasure pieces of plywood, I'm really happy because we have made 1" strips with all of that. So we were able to square off all of those scrap pieces that we had and turn them into basically 1" by 1/4" slats to be able to make our wood quilt. These are super light. They're really not gonna add much weight to this door, and I'm really happy with the way that they turned out. They do need some sanding, but I'm gonna get all of my pieces done first, then I'll be able to sand it before I do any painting. So what I did was I measured my length and my width, and I found my center point. And then I'm going to work off of these lines that I've created to make sure that my quilt, when the door is actually up, you wanna make sure that that center line where your lines go off of for your wood are actually central, otherwise it's gonna look like the door, so like an optical illusion. And so I'm going to, in my head, I kind of know what my design's going to look like. I had a little bit of an inspiration photo to follow, and so I wanna basically make sort of like an arrow shape in the middle here and then work with some triangular shapes going off of it to fill out the rest of the door. And so I know that I want my arrow kind of to be a rough shape in the middle here. And so I'm going to cut 4 of the same shape of a couple shapes that I put out to start this initial fan that I'm doing in the middle, and then I can work off of it. I'm going to use my miter saw because I'm basically going to do the easiest cuts on this, 45-degree angles for almost every single cut that I use for this. Keep it cohesive with the same type of cut is going to make this a really easy project. Once you get that central shape done, it really goes a lot easier from there, because we know from doing wood quilts before that this is just the best way to stick with that angle and go from there. I've gotten some pieces of my initial center point arrow done, and I think it looks really good. It was pretty tricky to cut this because it's so flexible. So if you actually have like a long strip, you can just snap it really easily. And so I was actually happy that I was working with some shorter pieces and not having to worry, because I did actually break a few just getting them over to the miter saw. And so I have done all of these cuts on 45-degree angles. And so I made 4, and you just have to flip them over and reverse them to be able to make it for the other side, like a mirrored image. And so I just started with this one, retrace them and flip them to make this other side. And now what I'll do is I'll create 45-degree angles to create a triangular shape coming out on either side and work always off of that center point. I need to sand all of these little pieces on the edges because it is the plywood and it's not a real solid wood. When you cut with the table saw, you don't get a very perfectly clean line. You get a nice straight cut, but you get a little bit of the fraying on the back. So in order for these to butt up nice and close together and to be able to paint these, I need to sand all of them, get them painted, and then glue them on. And because I want my edge pieces to be really tight and perfectly straight along this edge, I need to get this initial center area done, sanded, painted, and glued down and let it sit. So then I can build off of it to make my perfect length cuts for the side here. So it's a bit of a process, but I think in the end it's gonna look amazing. So we also need to make sure that we sit a paint can or something across this to make sure that my center piece here, it's kind of lifting because of the glue, so I need to leave some weight on that for a couple of hours before I can come and finish this. So definitely gonna be working on this more today, and we're gonna do a part 2 for you guys tomorrow so you can see all of this completely done and show you the steps and me adding the color. So leave a comment down below. What do you think I'm going to use for color for this wood quilt? What do you think?
So far, what you've done, I'm at awe. And I know the last wood quilt that you did turned out so amazing, so I already know that it's just gonna bring that flavor into the camper that we need. And what a focal point it's gonna be over on the door. I'm gonna be able to see it every day, and first thing when I walk into the camper, it's just turning out so amazing.
It's gonna be a great feature and really bring that bohemian look into what we're doing for the camper, because we wanna create some type of areas within the camper. So we're going to have the kitchen dinette living space area, our L-shaped sectional with the couch kind of hangout area, and then we're gonna have like the bedroom bathroom area. And so to create these spaces, we need some different features that are going to separate some of those spaces. I know right now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make a feature on a bathroom door, but really it's just another wall in the camper that's going to separate some of the spaces, because we can't really look at the walls that are in here as normal walls that you would have like in your house. Normally I wouldn't decorate my bathroom door. And so it's kind of neat that this is sort of just a sidewall in the camper that we can add a feature to be able to bring in more style into the camper. So let us know in the comment section what colors you think I'm going to use for the wood quilt, and just let us know what you think of the wood quilt wood quilt project. Chase has been doing tongue twisters. I need to be practicing. Our son Chase has decided he loves jokes and tongue twisters all of a sudden, and now I can't say anything. So yes, we're going to be working on the rest of that tonight. We're also doing a live tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We had a blast with you guys.
It was so fun.
Last night, and I know a lot of people wrote us saying that they missed it and they were so sad that they missed it. So we're going to go live again tonight, our normal kind of Sunday night, 9 p.m. live.
Yeah, we typically don't do it on a Saturday.
No.
And I wasn't even thinking, I was literally, what day is it? And we did a live, and so typically we do it on a Sunday. So if you missed yesterday's live, we'll do a live again tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna have some warm tea and sit and have a hangout with you guys. So we're excited about that. So we will see you guys tonight on our live. We hope you enjoy this video. This is part 1 of part 2 of our feature. So let us know what you think, and we will see you tonight and on tomorrow's video. Bye.
We love you.